Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and today I'm going to go over my day at Huddersfield for the regional championships that occurred last weekend. I actually ended up getting top 8 with Sceptile, which is a deck for the standard format that hasn't really been mentioned a lot of since its release basically. Not many people have been hyping it or anything like that, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about how that deck works, what I played against and stuff like that. So hopefully it's going to be quite enjoyable and quite informative for those of you considering to go to other regionals in the next couple of weeks, and maybe your preparations for cities if you are overseas. So let's jump straight into it. Going into the event, we really didn't have many things to go off of. I think just league challenges were the main things that we really had to really demonstrate what was powerful right now. So it was mainly about what was hyped, and I feel like Lucario Crobat was one of the main hyped decks. Ryan Morehouse, a very prominent UK player, respected by many as the best in the UK right now. He's done a couple of good articles on Poker Beach about the strength of Lucario Crobat and mentioned how he would more than likely be playing it at the event. So I believe that was one of the main hype decks going in because it's very fast. You have some things like Focus Sash, which can be pesky to get around for a different couple of decks. And you have these backdrops to help you to 2 and 1 hit sometimes EX Pokemon, as well as help you against non-EX decks to snipe their lower forms. So that was hyped. Also, Mega Manectric Regice was hyped. Regice can be a pain for a bunch of different decks, seeing though most of the things popular right now are EX based. And Manectric has seen a lot of success since it's come out, basically, because it's a cheap attacker that can also accelerate energy. So powerful combo there. It was sort of thinking that Lucario Crobat was almost an answer to Manectric in the first place, when Manectric was probably at one point the most hyped deck. And then the third most hyped deck was some sort of Giratina variant. I feel like Giratina is still trying to find its place in the metagame, be it paired with Seismitoad like we've seen in Expanded, maybe in a Fairy deck, maybe in some sort of Metal deck. But I was expecting to see Giratina overall no matter what, so maybe a bit less, but I was expecting to see a couple of other things as well. Rayquaza, seeing as though it can face up to fighting bats quite nicely. It does sort of struggle with Giratina. Manectric's manageable if you have Altaria, of course, but they can still Hex Maniac you. But either way, I felt Rayquaza would be played. Different bat variants I was expecting, just to sort of deal with the fighting bats. Maybe something like Toad Bats, or even Manectric Bats, which Manectric Bats is quite a decent deck. Saw a couple of those on the day, being piloted by some good players, so there's clearly something there. Night March as well I thought would be played. It always is, just because it can set up fast, it's very consistent, so I was expecting to see some of those. Also, like I say, these metal variants popping up here and there, maybe with the Tyrantrum, because Tyrantrum Muscle Band hits magic numbers that can kill stuff like Mega Manectric, so that's quite a nice card there. And again, that's one that's sort of popped up here and there in Expanded. And then finally, I was expecting to see some Vileplume Regice Milk Tank. I don't think I actually saw any of it during the day, but I was at least testing for it because, you know, that turn 1 lock can be very vicious. So those are the main decks I was looking for. Mainly trying to have a good matchup against Lucario Crobat. That was the main thing I wanted to make sure of. And also be aware of Manectric and Giratina as well. So that's basically how I landed on Sceptile. So let's explain a bit more about why Mega Sceptile is so decent. Basically, looking at those top 3 decks, Manectric hits for 110, Giratina hits for 100, and like the combination of Hawlucha and Lucario, they hit around 60 to 120 depending on the energy, the tools, and the stadium, whether that's in play, all of that stuff. So overall, not many things are one-shotting us right now. I think the real exception would be Mega Rayquaza. Night March can do as well, potentially, but it's quite difficult for them to do so. So basically, trying to hit this 220 HP in one turn is very difficult for almost everything I was playing up against. And that really bodes well for Sceptile, because it has the Jagged Saber attack, which attaches up to 2 Grass Energy from your hands to your bench Pokemon in any way you like. And if you attach energy to a Pokemon this way, you get to heal all damage from that Pokemon. So essentially what we're trying to do is use a couple of Sceptile throughout the entire game, keeping to bounce between them with the combination of Super Scoop Up, maybe an AZ here or there, and just manually retreating sometimes. You can manually retreat and then Jagged Saber energy back on. So you have a constant stream of energy acceleration once you go Mega, and you can keep healing off this damage as if your opponent really didn't do anything, which is really awesome. Another couple of things, like I was saying, I'm trying to really have a good matchup against fighting bats. So Sceptile is the perfect card for that. The Theta Stop means that bat damage does 0 to Mega Sceptile, so it's very difficult for the fighting decks to really do anything effectively against it. And also, you can break their focus sashes by using Ariados. The Poisonous Nest, of course, does it in between turns once the sash has already been broken from the attack, so that's pretty awesome as well. A couple of other factors why I thought Sceptile was quite decent. It has type coverage over Seismitoad. Now, type coverage against Seismitoad isn't too big because they're always going to be playing hammers and headringers and stuff. But once you do get those attacks off, you can pretty much start running through the Seismitoad player, which is really awesome. And the regular Sceptile EX is quite a decent utility attack as well. For just a single grass, you can do Sleep Poison for 10, and then flip a coin if heads, they're asleep and poisoned. So it's almost like Hypnotoxic Laser, but you don't guarantee the poison. So there's still that 25% chance that the toad stays asleep, and you can either force them to switch out or use an AZ or something like that, or you just break the lock for a turn, which is pretty cool. The final reason I liked Sceptile was it was pretty much under the radar. No one's playing anything fire right now. No one's teching for Sceptile, so it pretty much was greenlit to do quite well, I felt, on the day. So how does the Sceptile deck work? Well, basically, it's all about a loop. As you can see on the far left here, Super Scoop Up's the main card, but basically, in the early turns, if you're up against something aggressive, you're more than likely wanting to set up the Mega Sceptile to be on your bench, so that your active Sceptile, if it receives some damage, you can pay retreat or Super Scoop Up out of there, so then you can bring in the Mega to start using Jagged Saber to reattach to the bench as if they've not taken any prizes at all, which is pretty awesome. And if they are very aggressive, even if it's like a Night March, it means that your energy is still safe on the benched Mega EX, so you can continue to accelerate and have attackers turn after turn. And then when you progress into the mid to late game, on the right side here, once your Mega has been damaged, you can use a Super Scoop Up to pick everything up, promote a new Sceptile, reattach the things that you've just put into your hand, so you can attach for turn the grass energy, you can put that Spirit Link back on, you can re-Mega Evolve, and then you can bench that other Sceptile that you just put in your hand, and then the Jagged Saber can reattach as well with the attack. So it's as if, literally, you've just wiped the damage off the board, and you've got the exact same board state, which is pretty awesome. That's, of course, if you flip heads on the Super Scoop Up. If you don't have Super Scoop Ups, or if you don't flip heads on them, you can still pay retreat and Mega Evolve into a different Sceptile, and then use Jagged Saber to heal. We still have AZ in the deck as well, that's also doing that jumping up to the hand thing, so at least you recover the Sceptile and the Mega, but you don't get the energy back or anything like that. But we played quite a few energy. We played, I think I played 10, and I had a letter and a energy retrieval in there, so there's a lot of grass energy in the hand most of the time anyway. Obviously, Super Scoop Up's the most crucial way that we can do this, because we literally recover everything. So even Jagged Saber puts the energy back to literally reset the clock as if it was a turn ago, which really helps us out, seeing as though we're always putting a threat on with 100 damage with Jagged Saber, or sometimes, if decks can't even hit 170, Unseen Claw doing 130 damage, that's 140 with the poison, obviously, if we have Ariados in play. So we can really threaten to two-shot everything in the format right now, which is pretty awesome. So by this time, you're probably wanting to see a list. And for that, I would suggest going over to Team Cake's YouTube channel. They are the originators of the deck. Basically, I turned up on the day with Sceptile, and I was discussing it with them. They didn't know that I was playing Sceptile until that morning, and they basically wanted to compare lists with me, and theirs seemed a lot stronger, so they really helped me out. I switched about 6 cards out, I think, of my deck to vastly improve it, and I really have to thank them a lot. They pretty much got me the top 8. I was piloting a list much more similar to theirs, so head over to their YouTube. I don't think they've done a video based on Sceptile just yet, but they are a fairly new channel. They're trying to get more and more videos out there, and they are pretty much a lot of frequent Worlds competitors, and they're often winning tournaments and top cutting, so trust me, if you listen to their advice, you'll do better. So go over to their YouTube channel. Like I say, it's quite small right now, but they're getting more into it, and they're great players and great guys as well. And then the picture on the right side, this is not the list, so don't get too overexcited. Basically, this is what someone on Verbank came up with after watching the stream, where Adam Hawkins, who was the other player playing Sceptile on the day, he was on stream at one point, and basically the guy started looking at what was being played and tried to formulate a 60-card list very close to that. And I can confirm this is a list that is close to the deck that I played on the day and the deck that Adam played as well. So if you're wanting to start testing Sceptile, this is probably a good starting point. You can make tweaks along the way as you prefer, basically. But really, the main crucial cards for Sceptile is just the regular Sceptile and the Mega. The Ariados line is crucial, and Super Scoop Up is probably the most important card in the list as well. So those are the most important cards of the deck. It pretty much figures itself out. There's not too many things I would tweak about the deck. So yeah, that's basically what Sceptile's all about. So on the day, there were 91 Masters playing. I think there was quite a few juniors and seniors around as well, which is good to see, seeing as though we've had tournaments where there's only been a couple of rounds for the juniors and seniors, which kind of sucks. But there were 7 rounds of Swiss for us Masters, and I was quite surprised to see that there was such a vast variety of decks being that I could see around the tables. I guess because it's the first regionals of the year, it's all pretty much up in the air as what's the best pick and stuff like that. So everyone was trying to do well with different things. And overall, yeah, I couldn't really see a most clearly played deck. I think Giratina was the card I saw the most overall, but that's because he was popping up in lots of different forms, as in he was in the metal decks, he was in the Aromatisse variants. That was a pretty popular one, actually. There was also a couple of people playing it with Toad and Crawdaunt, which is also pretty good. So Giratina was popping up a lot. Also Mega Man was up around a lot of the time, so I was actually very surprised to see so little Lucario Crobat. I thought there would be a lot more of that on the day, but I didn't see too many of them. So, going into round 1, I'm really going to try and skip through these rounds as quickly as possible. Not many of you like to see tournament reports because, it's difficult to visualise a whole game in 1 or 2 minutes, and my memory is hazy by this point as well. So, basically, in this matchup, it was just a metal deck. It was James Brown, and the main attackers he used was Dialga and Aegislash, just a pure metal build. The real issues that I had to face in this series of games was Dialga's Chrono Wind attack, doing that 60 and preventing me from attacking next turn. So this is awkward because Jagged Saber is my energy acceleration, and if I'm to stream attackers, I need to have that online. So there was the sort of situation where I had to hold off going Mega for a couple of turns, and in that situation, then I'm vulnerable to Dialga's second attack, Full Metal Impact, where with a Muscle Band he can one-shot me and just wipe all the energy off my Sceptile, which is a real worry. But again, this is only the opening turns. It was never really on the cards for him to get that combo off, but it was something for me to worry about in the early turns. Once I was able to establish the Mega, I got into the loop quite easily. Obviously, nothing hits me for 220, so I'm pretty safe there. Aegislash is not a problem at all. I'm playing all basic energy, so I was able to run through James in a few turns quite easily once I got the loop going. So that's pretty much what I was doing every game I played. Once you get that loop established, it's pretty much a similar story where you will end up winning the game. Round 2, I'm up against Scott Burgess, a previous national champion and great guy as well. He was playing Mega Manetric Lucario with a few Horluchas in there, so it's almost like an old school Mega Manetric deck. When it first was released, it was being paired with Landorus to help out mirror matches and to help accelerate those big attacks from the fighting types. And it looks like Scott was preparing to face other Manetrics throughout the day, and unfortunately for him, that doesn't bode too well up against Mega Sceptile. I think I would have had a lot more trouble if it was the Manetric Regice build, but it was, as I say, with the fighting toys, so it was quite easy for me to overcome these couple of games. I think I won 2-0. In the second game, he got a bit more set up, and he was 2 prizes away from winning, but I was able to super scoop up my Shaman, which would have been the glaring weakness, whereas everything else was fully healed on my bench. So that was the only sort of hiccup. I felt in control of that matchup the entire time. It was taking a while for me to kill Mega Manetrix, because I never developed Ariados in game 2, so I had to 3-shot a Mega Manectric, which was kind of annoying, but once I got over that, I was able to win the game. So on to round 3, sat at 2-over now. So in round 3, I'm up against Jonathan Cowley, or Jono. He's playing Seismitoad Giratina with Crawdaunt, and this is a really pesky deck to deal with. Obviously, it's playing a lot of Headringers. He played Super Scoop-Ups for his Crawdaunts, and essentially, I was not doing too much in the opening turns. He was getting those Quaking Punches up. He also played stuff like Team Flare Grunt to keep making it difficult for me to get any attacks off. I think there was a couple of times when I was able to do the Sleep Poison attack, but the flips never went my way. Even if they did do, he has AZ and Super Scoop-Ups anyway, so I doubt it would have been too big of a deal. I ended up going into the Mega Evolution so that I could stop Crawdaunt taking off all my energy, because of course Theta Stop means that Crawdaunt's effect doesn't do anything. But then he's able to go into Giratina, and seeing as though I had been Quaking Punch for so long, I hadn't really dug through my deck enough to find Hex Maniac, so the Giratina started to run through me. And that was pretty much how it panned out for both games, to be honest. I really couldn't get too set up, which is a bit of a shame because I was feeling good about Sceptile until I came up against that deck. And it pretty much clean swept me in both games. I think I took a couple of prizes here and there in each game, but I was never really in the ascendancy, unfortunately. So there we go. I think the Crawdaunt really did help him out. Even though I could go Mega to stop that, it literally meant that I had to have Hex Maniac every turn, which made it really awkward against the Giratina. So the Crawdaunt was sort of like a check in its own right, so that I was forced into the Mega, which is pretty cool. So well-built deck, and it completely destroyed me. Into round 4, I'm up against Danielle Hames, and she's playing another creative deck. This is a Whalelord Walls deck, and that's really the only way I can describe it. Whalelord EX, Regice, Seismitoad, Wobbuffet, Aegislash. I don't know what else she played, but these were just a few things that I saw during our matches. Game 1, I'm able to one-shot the Whalelords quite easily because I have Ariados and the regular Sceptile to one-shot them. I was also able to Lysander up Regice before it was using Resistance Blizzard, so I pretty much won that game pretty easily. It took me a few turns to get over their Aegislash. I think the last couple of prizes it took me a while because I had to, she kept AZing up whenever I did 100 odd damage, but I was basically able to win the game eventually. And then into game 2, it's a lot more awkward for me. She's able to develop Regice very early, so I'm getting pressured with 70 damage each turn. My non-EX attackers are one Virizion and then those Ariados, so nothing's too ideal. Ariados would get one hit, so I never even went for that option because I didn't want to waste 2 energy. Virizion can only do a base of 40, and I have to wait for the Regice to actually take prizes for me to be able to one-shot Regice. So it was pretty much a standoff where I would just get damaged on my Sceptiles. She was trying to... I was trying to Lysander up other things as well, because she was always benching something else. But then whenever I did that, it would get AZ'd up anyway, and she'd go back into the Regice. I never had the turn where I could use Escape Rope plus Lysander on the Regice. I ended up having to Sycamore it away so that I could grab more grass energies, because Danielle also played Hammers to make it even more awkward for me. So eventually, I end up trying to draw pass for a couple of turns, and it really bodes worse for me, because I was holding on to a Sycamore, and I sort of drew past like 3 turns, and it meant that in those 3 turns, I top-decked 2 more VS Seekers, and it made the Sycamore much more painful when I actually had to go for it, because that was the crucial turn where if I found another energy for Virizion, I could response KO the Regice. I did end up doing that. I got through the Regice, but from there, the Virizion goes back down to just doing a 40 base each turn, and then she had a Whalelord with the Rough Seas in play and a Hard Charm, and I wasted a few more turns just doing, not much damage with Virizion, and it ended up costing me too much in game 2, which is a real shame. So on to game 3, there's not too much time left. She starts Lone Seismitoad, I can attach Pass, and then she hits Crushing Hammer Heads. I then attach Pass again, or I attach Attack just for that 20 damage, Pass again, and she Crushing Hammer Heads is again. So in those 2 turns where she had just 1 basic that I could have one-shot the following turn, she got 2 Crushing Hammer Heads, so that's kind of unfortunate for me. From there, she was able to develop enough bench Pokemon to where she could go to time, and then we ended up tying, so we still had fun. It was a really chilled out game, and although those flips were not going my way, getting a draw against a deck that I really had no idea how to play against was pretty interesting, so I thought that was okay. Into round 5, I'm up against Max Taylor, and he's playing Aromatisse Giratina. Now, game 1, I pretty much ran really hot. I had Xerosic and Hexmaniac in my opening hand. These are the two supporters you want to see against those Giratina decks. I was also able to Lysander up a Spritzy quite early on, and deny him of Aromatisse for pretty much the whole game from then on. So Giratina without that Aromatisse means that it can't do its Fairy Transfer healing shenanigans. So these Jagged Sabers and the Unseen Claws from the other Sceptile were starting to rack up on the Giratina. Of course, he couldn't move his energy around either, so whenever he did dedicate double dragons, it meant that the Giratina was basically dying straight away. So I comfortably managed to win that game. I think he got a couple of Chaos Wheels off, but even then I'm able to Jagged Saber to heal, and it was pretty easy for me that first game. Game 2 it's even easier because he pretty much dead draws and has to pass like 3 turns in a row, whereas I'm able to just Jagged Saber through him, so that's pretty good there. A fairly easy win. I felt like I had the good rub of the green there. I got good opening hands in the first game, and then in the second game he really drew poorly, so unfortunate that we didn't get into a real good game for that matchup, because I feel like if Giratina Aromatisse does set up, it can be very awkward for me. We both have healing, and it's basically whenever I can hit Hexmaniac, I go into the Ascendancy, but until that point, the Tina Aromatisse player probably does feel on top. Into round 6, I'm up against Ryan Morehouse. I mentioned him earlier, probably one of the best UK players we have. He's also a writer for Poker Beach, and he was playing Lucario Hawlucha Crobat. I knew his 60-card list exactly because I read his articles, and this is basically the deck that I'm trying to beat by playing Sceptile. He actually manages to win the first game because I started with Shaman, started to dead draw. Hawlucha takes a knockout on Shaman on his second turn by attaching the Muscle Band Strong and Fighting Stadium. I still have a bench Pokemon, I have like a Sceptile, but I'm basically draw passing for another 3 turns before I can do anything, and at that point his prizes are way too ahead. But in games 2 and 3, I'm able to set up as I would normally do, and the Jagged Saber is just too painful for him. He's trying to use Flying Press and Corkscrew Smash and all of these things, and each turn I'm able to heal it off and re-attack for more damage, so Sceptile does what it's meant to do in those next 2 games, and I'm able to overcome that matchup pretty easily. So into round 7, I'm up against Alex Dow, and he's our current national champion and good friend. He was playing Night March, and he was playing it with a Bayonet line. This is a tech that a lot of people are giving love right now, because the regular Shuppet for a Psychic Energy can use Bleh to get rid of energies off of stuff like Giratinas and Seismitoads to help out those matchups. And then the Bayonet has the Tool Concealment ability, so that you can get through Focus Sashes, and so that you can prevent a whole lot of different things, so that you have a pretty much better matchup against the Fighting Bats decks overall. So this was a real crucial thing that he played the Bayonet. It meant that Alex didn't actually play Muscle Band, so if he was able to try and get a one-shot on my Mega Sceptile, he had to commit 11 of his 12 Night Marches to actually get that knockout, which means if at any point he had one prized, he would never be able to one-shot me, and if he was going to extend to get that one shot, and I was still able to respond KO the following turn, it meant that he needed to get a combination of Switch, Revive, and then DCE all in one turn, which was kind of awkward for him to get those 3 combo pieces, so it was pretty much a situation where in the early turns, he's able to go up a few prizes, then I'm able to develop the Mega, deny a few prizes, along the way I'm killing a Night Marcher each turn, to the point where he has to use Bunnelby to Rototilla back some stuff, and at that point I'm able to Lysander around the remaining Night Marchers on his bench and take the win there, whereas he's pretty much left without any switching cards in his deck. He only played like 2, I think it was, which is normal for a Night March. Once he was out of those, I was able to Lysander up a Night Marcher each turn, and he would be forced back into Bunnelby, where again he can't develop a Night March the following turn, so it was pretty easy for me from then on. Into game 2, he was forced into Bunnelby again really early. I found out later that he had prized 2 double colourless energies, so I felt like he really didn't have a chance in that matchup just because of his awkward prizes. So it made that matchup a lot easier for me. I felt like the Night March matchup is relatively favourable. I'd say it's definitely even. Seeing as though he played the Bayonet, it was a lot easier for me in my opinion. because it meant that he didn't play Muscle Band, and that really changes the whole aspect of the game. So yeah, after 7 rounds of Swiss, I'm in at 5-1-1, and here are the standings. Luke Burke playing Night March came top. Then Patrick with a very interesting Vespiquen Crobat Bronzong deck came in second place. He was playing, I believe, a total of 30 Pokemon in his deck. So that's absolutely insane. I think there's pretty much... that's the right way to play Vespiquen, I would imagine, because you can pretty much one-shot everything in your path when you start setting up. Then there's Jono. That's the player who beat me with Seismitoad, Giratina, and Crawdaunt. He's in at third. I come in fourth place with Mega Sceptile. Then there's Adam Hawkins, a member of Team Cake, who pretty much helped me come up with a list. Also with Sceptile, he was in fifth spot. Then there was Danielle with the Whalelord Walls deck. It turns out I was the only person to draw with her, and I thought Whalelord was like going to draw every single round. She got 5 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. Don't know what that loss was to, but she seemed to do quite well throughout the day. Then there's Fraser with Night March. He's been playing Night March for as long as I've known him. He played it at UK Nationals, so he's a very competent Night March player. I know for a fact he was playing the Milotics to try and recover things. I don't know what sort of build Luke Burke was playing, so that's something I should have checked really. And then in at number 8, there was a Mega Rayquaza with Kristen Gregory. She was also playing with Bayonet. Again, a tech to help against Giratina with that Bleh, and also Bayonet can help out against the fighting stuff. So very creative way of playing Rayquaza, and it's good to see that that made top cut as well. So on to the rounds, I guess. So in the top 8, I was up against Adam with that same Sceptile deck. You can see that matchup on the bottom there. And a couple of things happened. Well, game 1, I got my Spinarak donked. In game 2, he dead draws and I'm able to run through his entire deck quite easily before he's able to develop his Sceptile loop. And then in game 3 was our only real proper game. And I was always in an awkward situation because Adam played one Sceptile as a promo, and that promo is really good in the mirror match, it turns out, because Strong Slash does 130 damage, and compared to the regular Sceptile, which can only do 60 and then 70 more if your opponent's active is poisoned, because obviously the Sceptiles are grass types, and Ariados doesn't work on grass types, it meant that I was capped at 60 with the regular Sceptile EX, which was really poor for me, because it meant that I couldn't one-shot Megas. No, I couldn't two-shot Megas, sorry, I had to three-shot them. Whereas Adam was in a situation where if he used Strong Slash, he could then go Mega and finish me off, or he could just retreat out and do it, whatever. So he was always in a favourable situation there. And really, in the third game, that Strong Slash was the difference, and it's what meant that he was able to beat me there, which is a real shame. But then again, he was the guy who came up with Sceptile in the first place. Obviously, I chose to play Sceptile as well, but he really made a better list than I did. And like I say, he helped me make those changes in the morning, so I'm not too worried that he knocked me out there. And then in the other matchups we saw, Vespiquen was able to overcome Night March. I think that's largely due to the bat line that he played. Whalelord Walls was able to beat Seismitoad Giratina. That's pretty much expected as well, seeing as though Danielle was playing Aegislash, and Aegislash pretty much stonewalls Giratina Seismitoad. Obviously, Danielle's also playing a lot of Flare Grunt, Zerosic, Lysander. All of these things are really awkward for the Seismitoad player. And then the other Night March was able to beat Mega Rayquaza. I believe that was Luke Burke's Night March beat Mega Ray. And again, you can expect that to happen. Non-EXs attacking into EXs, and Joltik with the weakness as well. I don't know if Kristen played Altaria. Seeing as though she was playing Bayonet, I don't know if she had space for both. But even if she did play Altaria, it's quite easy for Night March to get those big numbers, especially if it is playing the Muscle Band build rather than Bayonet. So into top 4. Vespiquen managed to overcome the Whalelord Walls deck. Again, you can expect that. Vespiquen has weakness on the Whalelord. Also, the Vespiquen player had Bronzong, so they could always have enough energy attachments, and you could also get around Aegislash that way as well. So, bit of a shame that the Whalelord Walls deck was taken down. But yeah, it was a fun list, and it did well while it lasted, but it just ended up coming up against something else pretty rogue as well. And then it was Mega Sceptile, Adam's Mega Sceptile, up against Night March, and he was able to beat that as well. So I guess that reflects what I was trying to say in round 7, that Sceptile does have a relatively favourable matchup. maybe just edging it at 55-45, something like that. But yeah, so on to the final. It was actually Mega Sceptile Vespiquen, and I think everyone going into the tournament, I don't think anyone would have predicted that that would have been the final for the day. Two decks that really haven't been hyped too much, and two new decks as well, which is quite interesting to see. And it was actually Mega Sceptile which was able to beat the Vespiquen player. The Vespiquen deck wasn't playing Flareon, so that's probably a big factor. Obviously, otherwise it would be quite easy to hit those big numbers. Also, Adam was playing double Hex Maniac, and for the Vespiquen deck, it's all about the Pokemon. Like I said, 30 cards of their deck are all Pokemon, and a lot of the draw power comes through Shaman and Unknown as well. So having those Hex Maniac, I imagine, could have slowed down the Vespiquen player quite a bit. Also, that Hex stops the Bronzong, so he's forced to find double colourless every turn, which is more awkward as well. So I really feel that would have been a clutch card in that matchup, and overall making it difficult to hit that 220 as well by slowing them down. So there we go. Congratulations to Adam and Mega Sceptile as well, doing quite well, which is pretty awesome. So there's the final standings. I'm in at 6th, losing the top 8, to Adam, who ended up winning the tournament. So I'd like to think that if I had beaten Adam, I could have done the same thing. Obviously, I'd already played Night March, so I knew the matchup quite well. The Vespiquen deck, I had a good idea about how to beat it, but could have been interesting as well. So there we are. My first tournament of the year, top 8, not too bad, with a pretty weird deck as well. But I feel it's actually pretty strong. So what can we learn from Huddersfield Regionals and going into Sutton Coldfield, which is this weekend? Sceptile's a really strong deck, and it can do very well against almost anything that can't one-shot it, in my opinion. Toad Tina is a difficult matchup for sure, but pretty much everything else I feel like it has a decent enough matchup, the way we built it at least. Another thing to note is that Giratina pretty much underperformed. Only one in the top 8 was surprising, seeing as though there was so much of it around on the day. However, I do still think it's very strong, and will be one that gets continued to play, really. A lot of people were playing Enhanced Hammers, a lot of people were playing Hex Maniac and Zerosic, I think just in pure fear for Giratina, so it seems to be one that's getting hated on quite a lot right now because of its popularity. It might be one of these cards that goes under the radar for a few weeks and then comes back and wins a big regional because people start to forget about it. But for now, everyone's trying to tech to beat it. So I feel like you have to be kind of nervous if you are the Giratina player because of that fact. Also, in addition, might be Bunnelby to try and recycle double dragons and stuff like that. It's just an option, you know, so that you can guarantee the Chaos Wheel in the end, but it's still awkward. Another thing to note is Vespiquen actually came really close to winning. At least making top 2, even with a 30 Pokemon deck, is absolutely insane. So I think it's one that we have to put back on the radar, one that we have to restart testing against and stuff like that, especially because it has the space to throw in Flareon. Now, Patrick was playing the build with Bronzong. You could just as easily play it with Evolutions and play Blacksmith to try and get around Aegislash. So if you do play that Flareon line, you have a really good matchup against Sceptile. And pretty much no deck right now can say that they have a really good matchup against Sceptile. So that's pretty interesting as well. Seeing as though it was already doing quite well, it really was underrepresented. I don't think many people played Vespiquen. I think I saw maybe 3 or 4 around, and seeing as though one of them came second, that's pretty good going. Another thing I'd like to mention is Bayonet is a really pro tech. A lot of people have started to clock onto it already, but Bayonet is really cool. Having that Shuppet with Psychic Energy just to discard and be a real thorn in the side of something like Giratina and Seismitoad, especially because Shuppet has 60 HP, so you can actually get rid of 2 DCEs from a Seismitoad if they are using that, and also getting rid of double dragons in general is really good against Giratina. And then you have the Bayonet as well to help you break Focus Sash, break all these other things as well, stop Spirit Links working so people have to waste their turn. There's a lot of good things around the Bayonet, so I think overall that's a card that we need to consider as well. Whenever we can fit that in, it might be a good option for us. So, there we are guys. I hope you enjoyed my mini report. Hopefully I didn't ramble on for too long, and hopefully there was some good info in there as well. Leave a like if you did. Let me know what you think's the best deck going into next week at Sutton Coldfield. I'll be there. I'll probably be playing Sceptile as well, but who knows? I'm still going to test Vespiquen. I'm going to test a couple of other things as well, so say hi to me if you get the chance, and it's Joe from OmniPoke, and I will see you guys next time.